Hello, good morning everyone. My name is George and today we are going to tackle about the grading system and reporting system. So when we say the grading system, it is a system that a school has developed to guide how teachers assess and grade student work. And when we say reporting system, so this is a system that a school has developed for the organization of assignment scores in grade books, either online or paper, and determination of final grades for report cards and transcripts. And yes, before we proceed to our discussion, so the objectives of this topic is after completing this module, you should be able to first demonstrate skills in preparing and interpreting grades. And then the second one is demonstrate skills in interpreting test results and reporting grades. And then the last one is to assess the effectiveness of parent-teacher conference as a venue for reporting learners' performance. And yes, assessment of learning during instruction and other instruction may be achieved uh, in a number of ways. So, one of the challenges in grading is that of summarizing the variety of collected information from the different types of assessment and come up with standardized numerical grade or a descriptive letter, a rating, or brief report. So, there are lots of challenges when it comes or during the instruction and other instruction that may be achieved in a number of ways. So there are lots of things or ways in order to have a good assessment or to achieve the assessment of a goal or a goal of one topic or a one report. And yes, we are going to tackle about the guiding premises in developing grading and reporting system. Um, reporting system are provided below. So the first one is the primary goal of grading and reporting is communication. So when we say communication, this is one of the key components in order for us to be a good a speaker. And the second one is the grading and reporting are integral parts of the instructional process. And this grading and reporting is one of most and best component, but it should be undergo instructional process or undergo a process. And the third one should, good reporting is based on good evidence. It was just simply means that if you are a good reporting, so basically, there's a good evidence that you are a good reporter. And then the last one is changes in grading and reporting are best accomplished through the development of a comprehensive reporting system. And those are the premises that we need to develop and implementing the grading and reporting systems. So these premises must be taken into consideration to have a meaningful output and help in the attainment of the student learning objectives. So to which the assessments objectives cascaded. So the last one is the K-12 curriculum have specific assessment requirements and design, catering on the delivery of modules, like for example the formal education and alternative learning system. So the K-12 assessment is learner-centered and carefully considers its learning environment system. So the K-12 curriculum is a learner-centered program. So it means it is something that students are the center of this curriculum. And then the 21st century skills such as research, analytical or critical, and then the practical and creative are parts of indicators. So included in the K to 12 assessment as well. So both cognitive and non-cognitive skills, which include values, motivation, attitude, behavior traits, and interpersonal relations are part of the assessment. And K-12 curriculum assessment will be standard-based to ensure there is a standardization in teaching and learning. That is according to Department of Education that was issued an order, a DepEd order number 31, series of 2012. So when we say standard-based term, so it was or it refers to a system of education or a instruction or a assessment, grading and academic reporting that are based on students demonstrating or understanding or mastery of the knowledge and skills they are expected to learn as they progress through their education.
Good day! Now, we are going to discuss the effects of grading on students. Over the years, students have also been made on how grades and comments of teachers written on students' papers might affect students' achievement. An early investigation by Page 1985 focused specifically on the issue. The results showed that students who received the standard comments with their grade achieved significantly higher scores than those who received only a score and grade. Those students who received individualized comments did even better. This led him to conclude that grades can have a beneficial effect on student learning when accompanied by specific or individualized comments from a teacher, according to Stewart and White, 1976. Studies conducted in more recent years confirmed Page's conclusion. The student undergoes many changes due to the grading of the education system and loses the self-esteem. The anxiety level of the students is often high, which in turn reduces the ability to think critically, study, integrate, and of course, recall the information learned in class during exams or assessments. Based on the study presented in the previous paragraphs, its relevance are: first, grades can be used in positive ways to enhance students' achievement and performance. Second, it showed that positive effects can be gained with relatively little effort on the part of teachers. Stamps or stickers with standard comments such as "this could be easily produced for teachers to use." Yet, the effect of the simple effort has significantly positive effect on students' performance. Grades have several explicit functions such as to give information of student attainment, to function as an instrument of selection to the next level in educational system, and to increase students' motivation to learn. Yes, that's it. So I hope you have learned something from me. So now let's proceed to the next, which is to be discussed by Ms. Eliza Mahilo.
So now let us discuss the norm and criterion reference assessment. So these two methods are used by teachers to measure and interpret students' performance concerning classroom instruction. So this will help the teacher to know if that student is doing well or not in the class. These two types of assessment are relative to different criteria, score formats, interpretation, and content. So first, let's have the norm reference assessment.
Norm reference assessment gives us information on what the student can perform by comparing to another student. It describes students' performance in the class by comparing to others. Teachers can actually rank the achievement of their students. As a result, there's a limited percentage of competition for those who are high scorers.
Norm reference assessment is designed to compare or rank test takers to one another. This method is used to understand how students' scores compared to a predefined population with similar experience. The scores are equated against the performance result of a certain group of test takers, which are typically of the same age or grade level. For example, if you score at the 80th percentile, that means that you scored better than the 80% of people in your group. So example of this is an IQ test. So in norm reference assessment, the scores are given as a rank based on the other student's score. So now let's have the criterion reference assessment.
Criterion reference assessment describes the performance of the students without reference to the performance of others, which uses preset criteria or predefined and absolute standard or outcomes. Usually, it describes students' mastery of the course content, thus, there is no competition for a limited percentage for a high score.
So criterion reference assessment, from the word itself, it is a method that measures students' performance based on a given criterion, competency standard, or mastery. Hence, the performance of a student is unrelated to one another. The student's performance is reported for individual skills. In other words, the performance of other students does not affect a student's score. This will help the teacher to know who among the students met the expectation and who did not. In criterion reference assessment, the result is expressed as percentage of total correct answers, which will determine if the student passed or failed the test. Example of these are exams for a job entry or licensure. So criterion reference assessment measures the skills and knowledge a student has mastered compared to a set of standard or criteria. That is criterion reference assessment.
So we have here the summary comparison of two basic approaches to achievement. In the first column, we have the principal use. The second column, we have the norm reference. And the third column, we have criterion reference. So the major emphasis of norm reference is to measure individual differences in achievement, while criterion reference describes tasks students can perform. Next, we have the interpretation of results. In norm reference, it compares performance to that of the other individuals, while criterion reference compares performance to a clearly specified achievement domain. The content of carriage of norm reference typically covers a broad area of achievement, while criterion reference typically focuses on a limited set of learning tasks. Next is the nature of test plan. In terms of nature of test plan, in norm reference assessment, table of specifications is commonly used, while in criterion reference assessment, detailed domain specification are favored. Next, we have item selection procedures. In norm reference assessment, items are selected that provide maximum discrimination among individuals to attain reliable ranking. Easy items are typically eliminated from the tests. While in criterion reference assessment, it includes all items needed adequately to describe performance. No attempt is made to alter item difficulty or eliminate easy items to increase the spread of scores. Lastly, we have the performance standards. In norm reference assessment, the level of performance is determined by relative position in some known group. For example, ranks 5th in a group of 20. While in criterion reference assessment, the level of performance is commonly determined by absolute standards. For example, demonstrates mastery by defining 90% of technical terms. So for us not to be confused, we just have to remember that norm reference assessment, from the word norm, meaning the standard of a group, the basis of scoring is the group standard. That means the score of a student depends on what the whole group will be able to get. So the scores are given as a rank based on other students' scores. While criterion reference assessment, the standard is the given criteria. It aims to measure the skills and knowledge a student has mastered that will be based on the set of standard or criteria. So that is norm and criterion reference assessment.
Now let's discuss about building a grading and reporting system. So what is the purpose of grading and reporting system? First, let's discuss about a grading system. The purpose of a grading system is to give feedback, to students so they can take charge of their learning and to provide information to all support these students, teachers, special educators, parents, and others. While the purpose of reporting system is to communicate the students' achievement to families, post-secondary institutions, and employers. When schools use grades to reward or punish students, or to sort students into levels, imbalances in power and privilege will be magnified and the purpose of the grading and reporting systems will not be achieved. This guide is intended to highlight the central practices that schools can use to ensure that their grading and reporting systems help them build a nurturing, equitable, creative, and dynamic culture of learning. The basis of good reporting is good evidence. Whatever is preferred and required of the teacher when it comes to format, grading and reporting should provide high-quality information to interested person by means of any schema they can understand and use. The basis of such high-quality information is critical evidence on student learning. Evaluation experts stress that if one is going to make important decisions about students that have broad implications, such as decisions involved in grading, the more that good evidence must be ready at hand. In the absence of good evidence, even the most detailed and high-tech grading and reporting system is useless. It simply cannot serve the basic communication functions for which it is intended. There are three qualities that contribute to the goodness of evidence that are gathered on student learning. And those are validity, reliability, and quantity. First, let's tackle about the validity. The validity refers to the appropriateness and adequacy of interpretations made from that information. Validity is used to determine whether research measures what it's intended to measure and to approximate the truthfulness of the results. So for example, if an assessment is to be used to describe students' reading comprehension, the evidence should actually reflect reading comprehension and no other irrelevant factors. Second is reliability. The reliability refers to the consistency of the assessment results. So for example, attain very similar scores with the same assessment procedures are used with the same students at two different times. Results have a high degree of reliability. The third one is the quantity. The more sources of evidence of students' learning, the better the information can be reported. So for example, any single source of evidence of student learning can be imperfect. It is essential that multiple sources of evidence in grading and reporting students are utilized. That's all.
Major purposes of grading and reporting. First, to communicate the achievement status of students to parents and others. Well, we cannot deny the fact that there are parents that will approach or ask the teacher nga amo na niyang ila grado sa diin nagdubo ang ilang kabataan. So the grading and reporting stage will answer the possible and usual questions. Let me quote the line of my previous teachers before when I was in elementary and high school nga nagsuma lang kami sang grado nga ginahatag nyo. This is why rubrics and grading system is very important because this will help and guide the teachers to grade and report to the parents and others about the students. Through this, we could be able also to inform them that their kids or kid is an achiever or an honor student. So the third one will be the to select, identify, or group students for certain educational paths or program. This is when the teacher will choose students that will represent the class, grade level, or for school competition, for example. In Math Challenge, written in the guidelines that there will be 3 representatives coming from first year, and of course, the teacher will choose the top 3 students in math class. Second example, in drawing competition. So the teacher will base their selection in their grades, output, feedback of the teachers, of course, in arts. The next one is to provide incentives for students to learn. This is about motivating your students that they need to study and work hard because they will reap what they have planted in the near future. But when they don't, they will suffer to the consequences ahead. The next one is to evaluate the effectiveness of instructional program. This is for the teachers. Based on their grades or the outcome of the year, you will evaluate if your instructional program is effective or not. Then you need to scrutinize the overall process nga ka mga nugbo kaila scores. Ano nga part dira ang hindi effective and at the same time, which among this part is need naton i-improve or need naton nga i-change or i-revise if possible or if needed. You provide evidence of students' lack of effort or inappropriate responsibility. Ma'am, sir, nga a failure ko. Ma'am, sir, nga a failure ang bata ko. Then you need to show your records. Maybe because you skipped your classes. Maybe because you're not participating in my class or in my oral recitation. Or you did not take the midterm or the end-term examination and many more factors nga nugbo or nubu ang imo grado or failure ang imo nga grado. You can use these as your evidences if ever the students or the parent will approach you and will question their grades.
Good day everyone. Now we are going to proceed to grading and reporting methods. The first method is letter grade. This is the most common and best known of all grading methods. It is mostly composed of 5 grading scale. Despite of their apparent simplicity, the true meaning of letter grades is not always clear. What the teachers would like to communicate with particular letter grade and what parents interpret that grade to mean often are not the same. To give more clarity to the meaning of letter grade, most schools often include a key or legend on reporting from in which each letter is paired with an explanatory word or phrase. Descriptors must be carefully chosen to avoid complications and misunderstanding. So we have here the 4 different interpretations of letter grades. The first interpretation is criterion reference. Criterion reference means that there are predefined standards or outcomes that will describe the performance of the students. The second is norm reference. So norm reference means that the student's performance will be described by comparing it to the performance of others. The third is the combination of norm and criterion reference, and the fourth is based on improvement. For example, you graded the students an A on oral recitation. So in criterion reference, this means that the student has mastery of all the targets and has exceeded the standards being set. On the other hand, in norm reference, grade A means that the student is outstanding and performed the best among the rest. In combined norm reference and criterion reference perspective, grade A means that the student has a very high level of performance. On the other hand, if we are going to base it on the student's improvement, grade A means that the student made much improvement on most of all targets. Like what I have said earlier, most letter grades are composed of 5-level grading scale. So we have here the grades A, B, C, D, and E. I think you now have an idea on different interpretations of letter grades. Now we are going to proceed to percentage grades. Percentage grades are multi-category grading method. It can range from 0 to 100 and more popular among high school teachers than elementary teachers. Just like the letter grades, percentage grades also have descriptors. Try to look at the bottom left of the sample report card represented above. As you can see, there are descriptors, grading scales, and remarks.
So the next topic is the standards-based grading. In an effort to bring greater clarity and specificity to the grading process, many schools initiated standards-based grading procedures and reporting forms. And instead of a single overall grade, standards-based grading breaks down the subject matter into smaller learning targets
and each target is a teachable concept that students should master by the end of the course. So Gasquet and Bailey in 2001 identify 4 steps in developing standards-based grading. And number 1 is to identify the major learning goals or standards that the students will be expected to achieve at each grade level or each course of study. These learning goals or standards should stipulate precisely what students should know and be able to do as a result of their learning experiences. Crucial consideration in identifying learning goals or standards is determining the degree of specificity. Standards that are too specific make reporting forms cumbersome to use and difficult to understand. And the standards that are too broad or general, however, make it hard to identify students' unique strengths and weaknesses. The second step is to establish performance indicators for the learning goals. So in other words, educators decide what evidence best illustrates students' attainment of each goal or standard. So educators need to establish performance indicators to facilitate the curriculum delivery strategies and assessment procedures, and will eliminate ambiguity concerning demonstration of expected learning goals or standards. And the third one is to determine graduated level of quality or the benchmarks for assessing each goal or standards. So this step involves identifying incremental levels of attainment and sometimes referred to as benchmarks as students progress toward the learning goals or standards. The number 4 is to develop reporting tools that communicate teachers' judgments of students' learning progress and culminating achievement in relation to the learning goals and standards. So, most schools today use a variety of reporting tools or devices: weekly or monthly progress reports, open house meetings, newsletters, evaluated projects, or assignments. So each reporting tool must fulfill a purpose. The next topic is the pass or fail grading. So the simplest alternative grading method available to all educators reduces the number of grade categories into just 2, the pass or fail. And in the late 1800s, pass or fail was originally introduced in all college-level courses in the college in order for students to give more importance to learning and less to grades they attained. So by lessening the emphasis on grades, many educators believed that students would be encouraged to take more challenging subjects. So the pass or fail classes operate on a binary grading system, meaning that no letter grade will be recorded on your college transcript. So the pass or fail grading system seeks to partially ease the burden of grades so students can focus on getting the most out of their college experience.
After we are enlightened about the different grading methods discussed by Teacher Feljan and Teacher Maxine, again, we have 4 methods: letter grade, percentage grade, standards-based grading, and pass or fail grading. Knowing the benefits and drawbacks of various strategies are critical for determining when and where they should be used. Advantages can sometimes blind us to the need to continually looking for better ways to achieve success, and disadvantages, on the other hand, can assist us to see circumstances from various angles and uncover approaches. And that is what I will discuss right now. The advantages and disadvantages of different grading methods. The first one, letter grades, the most common and the best known of all grading methods, where letters are used to represent a range of grades. These letter grades are also often ascribed a qualitative description. Letter grades are convenient to use, concise since it includes descriptors, and familiar because this is frequently used by some institutions. Its disadvantages are it is broad and sometimes confusing. It covers a large scope, and progress as well as efforts are elusive because, for instance, if 85 to 89 belongs to the same range, the same grade will reflect, and that is why effort and improvement are unclear. The second one is percentage grade. It is easy to calculate, easy to record, and easy to combine. Students and teachers also find this familiar since majority of the schools here in our country utilizes this. Similar to letter grade, percentage grade is also broad. There are sometimes unclear indication of performance and false sense of difference between close scores. High scores also do not necessarily signify mastery. The third one is the standards-based grading, and in here, we measure the student learning to understand the effectiveness of instruction. It is focused on high standards for all students and employs pre-established performance levels. Standards-based grading is more connected to the course study. It provides pupils with numerous opportunities to grow. However, many students do not offer their best effort, and it may not also reflect student learning in many areas since it is rigid. The last one is the pass or fail grading, the simplest alternative grading method that only uses two categories, pass or fail. It is simple and consistent with mastery of learning. However, it gives less emphasis on high performance and there is only a little discrimination in performance. And that is it for the advantages and disadvantages of the different grading methods.
Next is we have developing effective reporting system. The most critical issue to be addressed in selecting the tools included in reporting system is what purpose or purposes it is to serve, why you need to convey this information, and what you need to accomplish. So to determine the purpose or purposes, there are three aspects of communication that must be considered. These critical aspects in determining the communication purposes are the following. First is, what information or message do you want to communicate? So with this, we need to know the information. We need to communicate either about the student's achievement academically or morally. Gather the information or data or messages you intend to convey to your audience. Second, who is the primary audience for that message? So you must determine who your audience is and if the information you want to convey is really for them. To conclude, the primary audience for that message is the parent. Third is, how would you like that information or message to be used? So in some parts of the audience, specifically for the parents, they need that information to know the progress of their child, if they are doing well in school or not. So you must think of how the audience will use the information in some ways. So basically, these aspects aim our purpose to communicate to the parents on the achievement status of the students, and they must understand the information and know how to use it. This not only helps mobilize in the reporting process, it also keeps efforts on track. By knowing your purpose, you keep on track. By knowing your purpose, you can direct to the point, which is to communicate to a particular audience. If the purpose is clarified, you will be able to select tools that best serve the purposes. So these three critical aspects you must consider to determine the purpose or purposes for us to be able to develop an effective reporting system.
Good morning. Now, we will discuss the tools for comprehensive reporting system. Reporting systems most highly regarded by parents include a mix of traditional and more modern reporting tools. The purpose of a reporting system is to communicate the students' achievement to their families, post-secondary institutions, and employers.
These systems must, above all, communicate clear information about the skills a student has mastered or the areas where they need more support or practice. Tools that might be included in comprehensive reporting system. Report cards. Report cards, or sometimes called progress reports, provide written records of student performance on curriculum outcomes over a period of time. The School Act states that one of the roles of teachers is to regularly evaluate students and periodically report the results of the evaluation to the students' parents, and the board. According to Friedman in 1995, report cards are a great way for parents to know how their child is performing in school. The purpose of report cards is to convey information from the school to parents about a student's educational progress. Another tool is notes attached to report card. Report card comments should be personalized for each student and provides meaningful feedback to help parents understand their child's progress. The most important concept to remember when writing report card comments is to frame each statement in encouraging and positive language. Personalized report card comments that are clear, precise, and meaningful are essential for informing students and their parents about what students have learned, what their strengths are, and how they can effectively progress. This will also help to engage and reassure parents who want relevant and detailed commentary about their child's performance at school. Another tool is the Standardized Assessment Report. The assessment of the student's development and learning is an essential component of the curriculum and helps to inform continued development, learning, and teaching. The classroom teachers employ a range of formative and summative assessments that demonstrate students' achievement. Standardized assessments are used as a part of the whole school assessment policy in an effort to gain as much information as possible about the student as a learner and about the programs of learning. Standardized assessments are specifically used to inform teaching, to provide information that shows growth over time, and to form part of the process of reporting to parents. Phone calls to parents is also included in comprehensive reporting system. While report cards are one way the teacher reports to parents, they cannot provide all the information that parents need about students' ongoing learning. Teachers communicate information about students to parents in a number of other ways as well, like conferences, telephone conversations, or email. These alternate forms of communication can provide additional rich information and also allow for a dialogue.
Hello everyone, I'm Piolo Simply. So without further ado, let's continue the discussion. Number 5 in the list is the weekly or monthly progress report. So what is this progress report? A progress report is a document that explains in detail how much progress you have made towards the completion of your ongoing project. It outlines the activities you've carried out, the tasks you've completed, and the milestone you've reached in relation to your project plan. It explains the status of the project, like the amount of work completed, what part of work is currently in progress, the problems or unexpected things that have occurred, and other important factors that affects project completion. You can create a progress report depending on the scope and complexity of the project. Why is it important? Progress report is essential since it gets everyone on the same page. A person or a teacher, for example, who receives a copy of your progress report will be able to know what has been accomplished. It will prevent confusion about what has been and what has yet to be done. Also, it helps a teacher or a student at the same time, for example, to detect or to determine what was done right, what went wrong, and what can be improved. So next time, if you're planning for a next project, you'll be able to avoid those mistakes and failures occurred in the previous project and to be able to resolve it. Number 6 is the school open house. A school open house is designed for the benefit of all parents as a group. It usually held right before school begins or within the first 2 weeks of school. The open house gives parents and students the chance to get acquainted with the teacher, to see the school building and the classrooms, at the same time to get a quick overview of class expectations and the year's curriculum. So way back to our elementary or high school days, we have this called Brigada Escuela, or in technical terms, the National School Maintenance Week. It is an annual activity led by BSEd where everyone in the community or in school community work together as preparation for the opening of classes. Before or right after cleaning, teachers and parents will gather inside of the classroom, then they will have a conversation discussing matters. So we had this PTA, right? Or the School Parent-Teacher Association that often presents and make appeals for new officer as well as to talk about critical events on the school calendar. We are aware that this association is run by some parents and teachers to discuss matters that affect the children and to organize events to raise money for a specific project. Number 7 is the newsletter for parents. It is a great way to keep parents in a loop or to keep them updated and aware about what is happening in the classroom. A newsletter can include classroom stories, details about upcoming events, and suggestions for how families can support their children's academic growth at home. The following are some ideas of what to include in a classroom newsletters. First, announcement of upcoming events. Second, invitation to class activities or open house. Third, reminders. Fourth, list of items that parents could collect or save for a class project. And fifth, thank you note to families who help out. Okay, number 8 is a personal letter to parent. It is important for teacher to reach out the parents before school class begins, or it could be in the first 2 weeks of school. As teacher, we should write a formal letter that is welcoming and comprehensible to parents. It should communicate that the teacher values the child's education as well as the parents' support. To add on, the content of the letter will depend to the teacher's intention for enriching the student's education and personal growth. Thank you, everyone.
And number 9 is the project evaluation. It's a systematic and objective assessment of an ongoing and completed project. The aim is to determine the relevance and level of achievements of a project, objectives, development, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability. Number 10, portfolio assessment is a term with many meanings, and it is a process that can serve a variety of purposes. Number 11, homework assessment. Students are expected to fulfill the particular requirements of a curriculum in order to fully benefit from the educational growth that as a class has to offer. Teachers will specify logistics and expectations for satisfactory completion, time frame, and grading. Number 12, homework hotline is to assess the student's scholar with grading questions and encourage the students to be an active participant in their learning. This will also invite the students to write down procedural steps in their own words to help solve the similar problem.
So next is school web page. The purpose of it is to communicate what is happening in the school. It allows the parents or clients to see the deeper into what is happening in the school where they are sending their child every day. It also provides timely, engaging, and current information to your parent, staff, and student. So next is parent and teacher conference. It is a face-to-face meeting between one teacher and one or both parents or guardian of a student. It is an opportunity to discuss the student's academic progress and the social behavior. It is also a great opportunity to discuss intervention and enrichment strategies to support the student learning and discuss the issues that may be interfering the student's learning. So next is the student and teacher conference. It is a great way to connect and understand the students better. These meetings provide a platform to work with the students and reflect on their interests, performance, and progress. This conference empowers students to identify, plan, and set their own learning goals. And lastly, the students lead conference. Through the format may vary, these conferences differ from the traditional conference in that they place students at the helm of the teacher supported discussions with parents about the students' progress in learning. It also often presents opportunities for students to prepare, reflect, and discuss evidence of their learning and growth by the way of student portfolios. It also engages families in richer, more transparent conversations about the student progress.
Guidelines for better practice. To ensure the better practice of grading and reporting system, the following statements serve as guide on how to utilize effectively the grading and reporting system. Here are the following. First one, begin with a clear statement of purpose. Effective grading or practice is written for the faculty member who believes the grading process is a valuable measure of student learning. So, it is important that we should begin our statement, or we need to begin with a clear statement of purpose. We should know what is our purpose in doing or creating a better practice. We should explain the reason for your choice and how it fits in your aspiration for the future. The second one is provide accurate and understandable description of learning. In learning, it is important to give concise and clear information. It is important to always provide accurate and understandable information for learning. So how can we learn if we don't even understand the specific topic or the specific information? So that is why we need to be more clear, and we need to provide accurate information so that it is easy for us to adopt and to understand the information. In that way, we can gain knowledge and wisdom. We could be able to learn something on that, and in that way, we could be able to give or provide better practice. So in that way also, we are not just gaining the false information, since in the first place it is clear, concise, and accurate. And the last one is use grading and reporting to enhance learning. So if we use these two methods in learning, it is easier for us to learn something. Since in grading, we are not just giving our full attention in evaluating the students and observing their behavior. In evaluating, we are trying to understand their opinions, their perspective, and in that way, we are also learning or observing the behavior of them, or we are also teaching them, and the moment that we are also teaching, rest assured that we are also learning. On the other hand, we can use reporting as another way to learn, since in reporting we are not just giving information, but we are also reading and understanding the certain topic given to us, and by that we are not just providing information, we are also sharing knowledge, and by sharing knowledge we are also learning at the same time. So we can use these two methods to learn better, or we can use this as guide to have a better practice. Thank you.
I am the next discussant, and I will talk about the do's in effective grading. Students will work hard if they believe your grading is fair and consistent. Perceptions of unfairness or inconsistency can cause frustration and erode students' motivation and learning. To maintain fairness and consistency, consider using the following best practices. The first three are: use well thought out professional judgments. Second, try everything you can to score and grade fairly. Third, grade according to pre-established learning targets and standards. To make any judgment, we use criteria. Grading judgments should be made based on criteria and standards set out in the content and performance standards, curriculum expectations, and the levels of achievement chart. This sounds simple and straightforward, but it actually isn't. For example, you can ask any 3 teachers to grade a complex student performance, and it's quite possible you will have 3 different grades. This is why ongoing professional conversations about criteria are absolutely indispensable. The fourth one, clearly inform students and parents of grading procedures at the beginning of the semester. The transition of proficiency-based grading and reporting can become a source of misunderstanding, tension, and conflict. For this reason, it is critically important that districts and schools develop effective ways to explain new grading systems to their students, parents, families, and community. By being proactive and transparent in their communications about grading, schools can avoid difficult and time-consuming debates about grading symbols and move on to more substantive conversations about teaching, learning, and proficiency. For the next 2, we have base grades primarily on student performance and rely most on current information. So we have to follow course policies, establish, communicate, and follow course and institutional policies governing late submissions, requests for grading, cases of cheating and plagiarism, requests for special consideration, and the like. Make these policies clear to your students. 7. Mark, grade, and return assessments to students as soon as possible and with as much feedbacks as possible. Feedbacks play a critical role in improving students' learning and performance. Feedback should be prioritized, descriptive, constructive, and actionable. Be specific when you address your students' work. Tell students what they did well and what needs improvement. For the next 3 practices, review borderline cases carefully. When in doubt, assign the higher grade. Next, convert scores to the same scale before combining, and weight scores before combining. Do not be inflexible with borderline cases. Just remember to don't bump anyone up. Such a policy treats all students equally. It also saves you work because you don't have to puzzle over borderline cases at the end of the term. Also, avoid using 0 scores indiscriminately when averaging grades. There should be no extra credit in your course, but be flexible to opportunities that would help students attain borderline points. Next, use a sufficient number of assessments. The use of multiple assessments, including some that do not entail tests, makes allowance for that considerable proportion of the student body that does not perform well on tests. Interpretations of multiple assessment results contribute to a comprehensive understanding of how well and under what pedagogies or educational experiences students learn what an institution values. Lastly, be willing to change grades when warranted. Give students who have initial incomplete grades the chance to make up for what they've lost under reasonable circumstances. Do not purposely lower grades for cheating, misbehaving, tardiness, or absence. So that is all for the do's for effective grading. Now let us proceed to the next discussion.
Now we have the don'ts of effective grading. First, depend entirely on number crunching. Number crunching means activities or processes concerned with numbers. As a teacher, we don't need to rely entirely on numbers when grading. We can use well thought out judgments. Second, allow personal bias to affect grades. Allowing biases in grading is a big no-no. You have to be fair and square to your students. Third, grade on the curve using the class as the norm group. Grading on the curve means the various methods a teacher uses to adjust the scores that students get on an examination one way or another. When grading, we should relate or accord it to the learning targets and standards. Fourth, keep grading procedures secret. We should inform our students about the process of grading first and foremost. We have to be transparent in how we grade our students. Fifth, we have use effort, improvement, attitudes, and motivation for borderline students. Sixth, penalize poorly performing students early in the semester. So as a teacher, we don't have to punish right away those poor performing students. Seventh, return assessments weeks later with little or no feedback. Remember, it is vital to return the assessments after checking as soon as possible so that they will have knowledge of where they went wrong so that next time they can eventually avoid it. 8. Be inflexible with borderline cases. BPD is a personality disorder characterized by severe mood swings, impulsive behavior, and difficulty forming stable personal relationships. Students with this are sensitive. We have to know their background so that we will have a knowledge to what we're going to do when assigning a grade to them. Next one we have use zero scores indiscriminately when averaging grades. 10th, include extra credit assignments that are not related to the learning targets. So it is a big no-no. 11th, rely on one of two assessments for a semester grade. Remember, do not stick with one assessment for the whole semester. Using multiple assessments all throughout contribute the comprehensive learning or understanding of how well and under what pedagogies or educational experiences our students learn. 12th, we have lower grades for cheating, misbehaving, tardiness, or absence. It may sound a little bit cliche, but students are a work in progress and are willing to change when they deserve it.
Now we are going to talk about planning and implementing parent-teacher conference. The parent and teacher conference is the most common way teachers use to communicate with parents about student progress. It is typically a face-to-face discussion as what we normally see in schools, though phone conferences and calls can also be accepted or used. Parent-teacher conferences can be initiated either by the parent or the teacher, but based on the purpose. So there are two types of parent-teacher conferences based on two purposes. Number one is the group conferences. Group conferences are usually conducted at the beginning of the school year, and this is important because this is where the teachers can be able to communicate to the parents about the school and class policies, class content, evaluation procedures, their expectations, and the procedures on how to get in touch with the teachers. Having group conferences is really important because this is the time where the teachers could actively respond to the questions raised by the parents and to clear some misunderstandings or confusions on the side of the parents. In this case, the parents could also have an outline about what the school year will going to be and to be able to prepare their children about the possible activities throughout the year. Then, the second type of parent-teacher conferences based on its purpose is the individual conferences. And from the name itself, this is conducted to discuss the individual performance of the student. It could be
their achievements, difficulties, and progress. Individual conferences is really important because it directly targets to a particular student, and teachers are able to explain to the parents about where the numbers of the performance is coming from, to elaborate the strengths and the weaknesses, and to be able to ask assistance from them to help and guide their child or children to overcome the learning barriers. At this point of time, we are now going to talk about the reminders for conducting parent-teacher conferences. Number 1, plan each conference in advance. In this case, everyone can adjust their schedule at their most convenient time and to be able to attend to the conference. Number 2, conduct the conference in a private, quiet, and comfortable setting. This will help you ensure that the communication process will have a little to no distraction or communication barrier. Number 3, begin with class discussion of positive student performances, because most of the parents inside the conference are expecting to hear some good news about how their child or children is performing inside the classroom. Number 4, establish an informal, professional tone. In this case, parents would not want to listen to a strict and really formal ambience because that would not be very welcoming to them. Number 5, encourage parent participation in the conference. So in relation to the number 4, it is important to make the parents feel comfortable in speaking, in raising their opinions. 6, be frank in reviewing students' strengths and weaknesses, because your honesty will actually help mold the students and to help the parents to expect less from their children and to help them in the ways that they could. Number 7, don't forget to include the review of the language skills, which are really important: the reading, writing, speaking, listening, as well as the grammar skills of the student. Number 8, review learning targets with examples of student performances that shows progress, so that the parents would have an idea about the stepping stones on how their child will going to achieve that progress as well. Number 9, avoid discussing other students and other teachers, because comparing one to another will not help the student to improve, but rather create a competition between the two. Number 10, avoid bluffing. Make sure to differentiate about the things that you can do and what you can't do, and to honestly explain it to the parent so that they will not be hopeful for the case of their child. And lastly, identify 2 to 3 areas to work on in a plan of action to have a clear focus on how the student will achieve the learning target.